Hello everyone, this is Chris Fordham here for the Light Review, and today in this podcast we are going to take a look at the world of large format projection lighting. But what exactly is it? This form of lighting, if you can call it that, sits on the periphery of probably what we would consider lighting design, and it's closer to theatrical and event lighting than architectural. I mean, you probably wouldn't have a punt at it yourself, but it's good to know it's there, and I think you could certainly integrate it into lighting projects, but maybe leave it to the experts. If you want an example of what projection lighting actually is, anyone who attended events such as Lumiere London and saw the giant elephant on Regent Street, or anyone who watched the 2010 World Cup closing ceremony, that's projection lighting. So it's a bit of a temporary spectacle, something you just sit back and say, wow. Something maybe to consider for the future. I mean, there's a lot of vanity projects out there. I mentioned in my board in text. In a world of ever dwindling resources, is an argument maybe for replacing some of that traditional architectural lighting with more of this type. So we're joined today by Ros Ashton of Projection Studio, who is one of the masters of this form of projection. He's worked globally with a number of clients, ranging from governments to rock stars, and on events as diverse as FIFA World Cup to the Queen's Golden Jubilee. So enjoy. So in this podcast for the Light Review, we are joined by large format projection expert and double Guinness Book record holder, Ros Ashton of Projection Studio. So Ros has worked globally with all number of clients, ranging from governments to rock stars, and on events as diverse as FIFA World Cup to the Queen's Golden Jubilee. So thank you very much for joining us, Ros. And I don't think I've ever spoken to a double Guinness Book record holder. There's quite something.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the certainly one of them is really very important to me. I created the world's largest collaborative artwork. Took the self-portraits of over 200,000 British school children and turned them into one portrait of the Queen, and then we projected that onto Buckingham Palace. And it was on Blue Peter, but it was the fact that it gave all these kids an opportunity to be involved with art on that scale. That was created for the Prince's Trust for Children and the Arts, and they are, they're very keen on giving children experience in art. That's the reason for the charity. So it's quite an amazing thing. I mean, potentially that could have been every school child in the country. So we had to come up with a way of working that would have been allowed us to use every artwork, because I was absolutely determined that every picture sent to us would go into the projection. So yeah, 200,000 pieces of individual artwork. That took about half an hour to play all of those.
As far as I know, this technology has been commercially available since Disney used it in the 1960s, I think late 1960s. And since then it has grown in popularity and usage. So in your time, what are the biggest changes that you've seen?
Well, around the end of the 1988, I went to work in France. I was offered a job with a company, and these guys were creating some of the mega shows that Jean-Michel Jarre was doing. And if you remember, he started off doing a massive projection in downtown Houston in USA, and he was projecting entire skyscrapers. Big stuff, absolutely fantastic company to work for. And then they wanted to set up a company in the UK, so I came back to the UK to set that up, and basically that's what happened in 1994. I came back to the UK, and I've been doing that scale of projection here ever since.
So what do you think? I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, right?
Yeah.
What are the biggest changes you've seen? Is it more, everything's more computer controlled nowadays, I guess? Everything's more digital, or is it, there's still an element of?
No, there's more to it than that. Obviously, technology's moved on. I mean, the brightness of video projectors now is incredible. I mean, you've got 50K, 60K, 90K lumens video projectors. I mean, that's crazy. When I started out, it was a 3-gun Sanyo, which you were lucky to get 100 lumens out of. But they, yeah, apart from the move from obviously from, I mean, the technology is not the only change. It's also the way that you work. If you're working in slides, I mean, literally printed slides, which you've got to design in advance, make and bring to site, the client can't turn around and say, oh, I don't like that now. Can we change that? And you don't have the opportunity to say, actually, that doesn't work. What can I do? Because, the show's the next day or whatever. What you've got is what you're going to go with. So you better get it right in the first place. So part of the democratization of this whole process, being available to a lot more people, is that you don't have to think that way anymore. It's a slight shame because it means that what that taught me to do was to use every ounce of light you could get, to use every pixel, because if you didn't, you ended up needing more and more equipment, and obviously that, as you can understand, making all this film was an expensive process. The move on of the other, the media service side, the fact that you can now download this stuff off the internet for a few pounds or maybe even free. There's online tutorials on how to do it. That means that lots more people, anybody who actually wants to get into it, can get into it by looking at internet videos and downloading a piece of software. Excuse me. Whereas in my day, if I hadn't gone to work for that company, how would I ever got the opportunity to work with these massive numbers of slide projectors that we ended up working with? Because there wouldn't have been the opportunity. It was a very specialist field. There's only 2 or 3 companies in the world doing it.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, where do you think that it sits within the lighting design arena? Because I guess I'm really interested in how challenging it must be to blend that art with the architecture, and whether because like in lighting, you often try to reveal or hide form, but I don't know if the same applies for what you're doing for.
Well, there's still a feeling that projection is part of lighting, and I would say that it can be, but in my world it isn't. So there's this feeling that I don't want to be, I'm not trying to be insulting or confrontational. It's just that there's this view that it's light, so therefore it's something that a lighting designer can do, but it's not necessarily the case.
No, I'd say I'd agree with you for something, because it's a different format, isn't it? For some, and like I said, quite often you're trying to reveal. I'm quite interested in whether you're almost painting over the top of something, aren't you?
I think in exactly the same way as a lighting designer, we start with the building. I mean, the architecture is going to dictate anything and everything that you can do. If you're projecting onto something that's actually designed architecture, I mean, we project onto all kinds of things, obviously. But yes, and we are very much about the building and its history and its place in the city where it stands and its relationship with the people of that city through time. Those are the kind of themes that we like to work with. But yes, it's the building itself is obviously, that's what you're projecting onto, and that's what you can, as you say, hide or reveal. And that's the magic of projection mapping, is that you can do that to a great extent if you've got enough darkness that you can break build it back up.
There's loads of, I can think of loads of questions I want to ask. Like, has anyone come to you and said, I really want to video map this building, and you said to yourself, there's no way I can make that look anything like I need to, because it's just horrible? Or has anyone, I mean, I can imagine, this probably hasn't happened, but in my imagination, I think of rich billionaires taking their prized possession, I don't know, their prized house, mansion, and you're thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? Because it's just a, does that ever occur to you? I mean, because people would probably think, oh, I can chuck enough cash at it and I can have this amazing projection. And you're probably thinking, my God, what am I going to do? Because this is going to look really bad. Not because of not what you're doing, but what you've been asked to do it on, just like a canvas, right?
Yeah, not exactly like that, but I mean, there's a couple of things. What I mean, I wish I had £1 for every time I've been asked, can I project onto the moon?
Come on, you're joking. Who asked you that? Are these same people?
Well, production companies mostly.
I can imagine a later.
Name names.
Are they same as well? I mean, they're not like 15 or like 9-year-old kids. They're saying
no.
Okay.
No, these are but my favourite one, I've only ever had once, but my favourite one was, we would like to project a movie into the sky, okay? Because I get the bat signal question all the time as well.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. And we would like it to be projected above London, such that the astronauts on the International Space Station can look down and watch it. And, you know, but I don't know where to start. You know, you have to,
that's so funny.
Yeah, you can't really do that. But
did you? And
so many reasons why you can't. But
can you say that? Can you say that with a straight face to the client? Because you can't be rude, can you? But
no, well, luckily it's not. This was pre-Skype, pre-Zoom. This was kind of you can kind of just look at it and go, okay. No, you can't. No, absolutely. But to go back to your previous point, I've often asked people to, you know, think about, and in fact, I've kind of turned it into a mantra. You know, what is the projection supposed to achieve? And let's try and discuss a solution to actually what you want it to do, rather than what you've just described to me. Because normally, you know, they want to do some enormous building, and they haven't, you know, they obviously haven't got the budget for that. And, you know, my response to that is always, don't go for, you know, the side of this massive building. Well, you know, name one. Let's pick a small building, which we can do completely. And because,
yeah,
you know, a little square on that massive building is not going to impress anybody. Whereas if you did a house-sized with that same one projector, that's going to be really exciting because it's still big. I mean, it's the size of a house after all.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a disconnect between what people see and how hard it is to achieve it. Because I always think a lot of people take a lot for granted, don't they, technology-wise? So, I mean, I went to the Kew Gardens when they did a lighting show there, and I was amazed. It was incredible.
Good.
But you didn't do that, did you?
Well, no, but we work for the same company, not there, but they do a couple of these Christmas things, and we do.
Yeah,
we do, and we're pretty impressed with them. I mean, they do a really good job, I think.
Yeah, and I think probably the difficulty is in getting the client or whoever it is that is paying your bill to understand the limitations as well. Because, I mean, as technology becomes more accessible, like you say, anyone can get on board, but it's not like something you can just turn on and off. I guess there's lots of layers to it, aren't there? In much in the same way as lighting design is. I mean, in fact, are you being asked to include it on more standard projects as opposed to one-off pieces as the technology's improved, or is it just not feasible? Was it?
No, we do. I mean, to speak to your previous point, I mean, the problem is they see this stuff on YouTube and they just take it for granted. So again, several times I've been sent, there's a very it's a piece of video doing the rounds where there's a whole group of school kids in a classroom and a whale jumps out of the floor and goes back in. Have you seen that one? So they're all sitting watching it and going, wow, it's amazing. But of course, it's, you know, it's not real. They haven't got any glasses on, you know, and this whale is jumping out of the floor and going back into it, you know, so it cannot possibly be, if it's AR or VR or whatever, but they're not seeing it direct.
Yeah.
because they're all sitting there just looking at it. And well, if there is somebody tell me if there's a technology out there that let you do that without glasses or holding a phone up or whatever, I'd be really interested.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, I remember working a job in Mayfair with an architect, and what they were asking me to do was bend light around the corner, essentially. Yeah. And I did say, that unless you want to change the laws of physics, we're going to struggle to do that. But it wasn't, and this is coming from a rational architect who's been in the business for years, and it was very, very difficult to put it in such a way which was not rude, to be fair. I expect that's you come up against that.
Yeah, no, well, I mean, try not to be.
No, of course, everyone's trying to aim for the same thing. Aren't they?
Nobody knows. I mean, I don't know how to be a brain surgeon, but so and thank God not everybody knows how to do our job, or we wouldn't have one, I suppose.
No, exactly. I was saying, where do you think the whole world of projection is going, and what are its limitations? Can you have too much of a good thing? Because if it was on every street corner, it would lose its appeal for something, wouldn't it?
Well, I was talking about the democratization. I'm quite interested in that in itself. I think that's a good thing. I mean, I think that the more people can experience stuff themselves, that's got to be a good thing for their formation as designers or whatever. I mean, when I started out, obviously, as I say, I could count on the fingers of one hand the number of companies I know that were working with this kind of project, this kind of stuff in Europe. And probably, all fingers and all toes would probably do you the whole world, because there really weren't that. You couldn't afford them. I mean, these machines were massively expensive, and there was only 2 companies making anything like it, and only one of them was any good. So they were really, really expensive things to work with. So now you go, okay, well, I can go onto Amazon, I can buy a mini projector for less than £100, probably 50 quid. I can download a piece of software off the internet and plug my laptop into that, and I can projection map, a small piece of furniture or a cube or whatever. That's good, isn't it? I mean, that's good that people can do that if they're really interested in getting into this this way of working. That's a good thing. And of course, there were no college courses when I was training in this. You worked for a company that did it, or you didn't get into it. And of course, now you can go to Ravensbourne or Bournemouth and study, 3D graphics, and they have projection mapping modules because it's all part of the same thing. To speak to the other point, one of the problems, in inverted commas, of working in London is that there are quite strong rules against guerrilla projecting, on the fly. But I agree with that personally. I don't.
Oh, absolutely. You can't have a free for all, can you?
well, that would be exactly my point. Yeah, everything would be covered in Coca-Cola. Well, sorry, other brands are available. Everything would be covered in advertising, and that would be dreadful. I mean, I make a slight what's the word, caveat for political projection, because I can see there's a role for that potentially, but in general, you shouldn't be projecting. I mean, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when you're projecting onto the Angel of the North, or some of these iconic
White Cliffs of Dover springs to mind.
Yeah. I mean, that I'll hold my hand up. I have done that, but we got permits to do it. It wasn't done on the fly.
Yeah.
But and I've projected onto Big Ben, and I've projected onto the Houses of Parliament. I've projected onto Buckingham Palace, but they've been done as part of with permission of Westminster Council, or whichever council it is. As long as you seek the permissions, that's fine, because that still controls it, because they can say no, and they do. It's when people just think they can rock up and do what they like, and I don't want every building in the country to be covered in projection all the time. It needs to be magical for a start off. If it's not,
for me, you have to understand what it is that you're trying to achieve, and that is, you mentioned it before, but it is that is, for me, in lighting, working as a lighting designer, it always comes down to what am I trying to achieve, not how am I going to achieve and which products are going to use or anything. What is the end?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Who's it for, and what do you want it to tell them? What is it you want them to experience out of it? That's where I start. And quite often it's not what they tell you, because if they, again, if the image is for a photo shoot, well, it doesn't need to move for a start off. Because it's static potentially.
I think that's a good way to end it. So thanks very much, Ross, for your time today. It's been really illuminating. Don't forget to click and like this, and we'll see you on the flip side. Cheers, bye.
Thank you, see you later, bye.
Ár var alda, það ekki var. Vara sandur né sær, né svalar unnir. Jörð fannsk eigi, né upphifin. Gap var ginnunga, en gras ekki.
It was time's morning,
when there nothing was, nor sand,
nor sea,
no
cooling billows. Earth there was not,
nor heaven above. The Ginnunga gap was, but grass
nowhere.
Fyrr var það mörgum öldum, en jörð var sköpuð, Niflheimur var gerð.
Many ages before the earth was made, Niflheim had existed.
Fyrst var þó sá heimur í suðurhálfu, Múspell heitir.
Still there was before a world to the south, which was called Muspelheim.
Þá mættist hríminn og blær hitans, svo að bráðnaði og draup, og af þeim kviku dropum kviknaði með krafti þess til sendi hitan, og varð manns líkandi, og var sá nefndur Ymir.
And when the heated blasts from Muspelheim met the frost, so that it melted into drops, then, by the might of him who sent the heat, the drops quickened into life.
Og Ýmis holdi var jörð of sköpuð, en ór sveita sær. Björg úr beinum, baðmur úr hári, en ór hausi himinn.
Of Ymir's flesh the earth was made, and of his sweat the seas. Rocks of his bones, trees of his hair, and of his skull the sky.
Þar ein staður hliðskjálf heitir, og þá Óðinn settist þar í hásæti. Þá sá hann of alla heimar, og hvers manns athæfi, og vissi alla hluti þá hann sá.
Jormungand.
Þá kasti hann orminum í djúpa sæ liggur uppalönd, og sá orma sá að hann liggur í miðju hafinu of uppalönd, og bítur í spóðsér.
793 AD. This year came dreadful forewarnings over the land of the Northumbrians,
terrifying the people most woefully. These were immense sheets of light rushing through the air, and whirlwinds, and fiery dragons flying across the firmament. And not long after,
on the 6th day before the Ides of January in the same year, the harrowing inroads of heathen men made lamentable havoc in the Church of God in Lindisfarne.
En eftir göfga menn skildi haug gera.
For men of consequence, a mound should be raised to their memory.
En eftir
and for all other warriors who had been distinguished for manhood, a standing stone, which custom remained long after Odin's time.
King Harold ordered this monument made in memory of Gorm, his father, and in memory of Thyrve, his mother. That Harold, who won for himself all of Denmark and Norway, and made the Danes Christians.
The Danish king ordered the land defence to be fitted out.
A
wondrous building is this, and deftly constructed.
The Dane work was constructed in this way. The Danes had made a great wall of stone, turf and timber, and dug a deep and broad ditch in front of it, and had also built castles over the gates of it.
The monarch straightway gave command
to Haakon with a steel-clad band
to man the Daneworks rampart stout
and keep the foreign foemen out.
Svein, son of Harald's konungs, bade this
Svein, King Harald's son, asked his father for a part of his kingdom.
Harold would not divide Denmark.
The king was highly incensed.
Said no man had asked his father Gorm to be king over half of Denmark.
He would upon no account consent to diminish his kingdom.
Harold would not listen.
Svein gave battle. Þar fékk Haraldur konungur sár þau hann leiddu til bana.
King Harold received a wound which ended in his death.
Síðan var Sveinn tekinn til konungs í Danmörk.
And Svein was chosen king of Denmark.
Svein konungur gerði mannbótri og stefndi til sin höfdingum þeim váru í ríki hans. King Svein made a magnificent feast to which he invited all the chiefs of his dominions.
Fyrsta dag av veislunni áður Svein konungur stigi í hásæti föður síns.
The first day of the feast, before King Svein went up into his father's high seat, he drank the bowl to his father's memory and made the solemn vow that
áður 3 vetur væru liðnir,
before 3 winters were past,
að hann skildi kominn með hersinn til Englands,
he would go over with his army to England,
drepa aðalráð konung,
and either kill King Ethelred,
eða reka hann úr landi,
or chase him out of the country.
I believe in Christ, but at sea I vow to Thor.
As soon as the sails are hoisted, it has fair wind. Hear me, Liva, she that pitches. Rising, Duva, Hefri, she with clear view of the heavens. Thrones, blows harder.
She that sits as foaming fleck.
Billows, wells,
Calls,
Bilgja, she with hair of blood.
Whenever they fell into danger by land or sea, they called upon his name.
Fyrir því þá snýst miðgarðsormur í jötunn móð.
The Midgard serpent rides. Heaven is flickering into.
En himinn klofnar.
Fire flashes.
Eldar brenna úr augum hans úr nösum.
Ísk, Jörmungandr jöfnvíkar hann hít við himins.
AD.
Her on þessum jara kom Anlaf and Svein into Londonberry.
This year came Anlaf and Sweyn to London.
Med 490 shippum.
With 94 ships.
När tjänar Jesus off the sink here.
997 AD.
You shall not so gently treasure obtain.
1000.
He struck his sword at the king.
Hann lagði sverði til konungs.
1004.
The shields broke, the wave advanced.
The werth bordi y brach. Brim and wood.
10:09, 10:10.
Ecci munec gryda byddia.
I do not beg for mercy.
10:12.
Bita was seveduras fernos feldon.
Bitter the battle rush, warriors fell down. To Fordham tha Muntha Augustus kom Swegan Kuning mit his flotan to Sandwich.
Before the month of August came King Sweyn with his fleet to Sandwich.
Eil theodship hina hafta tha.
All the population fully received him
For fullna Kuning.
and considered him full king. Nu is Thinus Magnus blood, Anna Huile.
The glory of your might lasts now for a while, but soon it will be that sickness or sword will part you from your strength.
Zemninga bith, that vetch, drucht guma.
Soon it will be that you, warrior,
Death overswootheth.
death overcomes.
10:14.
When King Sweyn had conquered all, he went to Gainsborough.
Sweonia endoda his dagas to Candlemasan.
King Sweyn ended his days at Candlemas.
At York was he buried.
The fleet all chose Knut for king.
Dat heb ik heard sagt i Fordham frásögnum. A Gormur konung.
I've heard say by old stories that the Danish King Gorm was considered but a small king of a few people, for he ruled over Denmark alone. But the kings who succeeded him thought that was too little.
Ekki einþitt. Nu svo komið að Knútur reið.
It has since come so far that King Canute rules over Denmark and has conquered for himself a great part of Scotland.
Hluta Skotlands.
10:17.
Her on this anjara feng Knut Kun to El Englalandes Richa.
This year, King Knut took to the whole government of England.
Canute Cunning, great his archbishopus and his lord bishopus and Thorchil Earl.
Canute the king sends friendly greetings to his archbishops and suffragan bishops, and to Thurkill the earl, and all his earls, and to all his subjects in England.
Und ich kuve eal, that ich wolle bean hold clavord, und unswitchende, to Godes gerichtum, and to richtere warlaja. And I make known to you that I will be a kind lord and loyal to the rights of the church and to right secular law, that I should everywhere extol the praise of God, put away injustice, and promote full security and peace by the strength that God should give me.
Herefore Canute Cunning to Rome.
This year, King Canute went to Rome.
Deus Pater, aeterne gloriae sit auditor tuus et protector, et omnipotens benedicat tibi, precas tuas.
Mouti thar oxiautin, miclumeri enni öðrum stöðum.
With Canute, too, could be seen greater splendour and pomp than elsewhere, both with regard to the multitude of people who were daily in attendance, and also the other magnificent things about the houses he owned and dwelt in himself.
Qui vivit et regnat, trinus et unus Deus, per omnia saecula saeculorum. Amen. Und ialla men, Herma und Erdia, Herra church, and let all men, poor and rich, seek their church and ask forgiveness for their sins, as the Mass priest shall bid us, that we may all be able and permitted to share the joys of the heavenly kingdom, and dwell with him who liveth and reigneth for ever without end. Abut an enda. Amen. Amen.
(1035 AD). Herr Forthferde Knut King at Shaftesbury.
This year died King Canute at Shaftesbury, on the second day before the Ides of November.
And here is beburied on Winchester, on the Alden Munster,
And he's buried at Winchester in the Old Minster.
And he was king over all England.
He was king over all England.
Swedenech 20 wintra.
Very near 20 winters.